Hey guys, All Sports 83 sporting another video at you, and in today's video I'm going to be previewing week number 2 of the XFL season. Just like last week, we got 4 games. We're going to go through, highlight every one of them. I'm going to give you my thoughts on each game, and I'm also going to do a score prediction, and we'll see how I do at the end of the weekend. If you guys watch many of my videos, you know that I don't like to waste a lot of time, so we're going to jump into the first game right now. Our first game of the weekend is on Saturday at 2 p.m. on ABC. The New York Guardians are traveling to Washington to play the DC Defenders. And I think really right off the bat we're going to be getting probably the game of the week, in my opinion. As you look at these two teams, they both played very well last week. And I think really what this game is going to come down to are these defenses. Obviously, both offenses showed last week that they can execute. Both Cardale Jones and Matt McGloin were very poised. They stayed calm throughout their opening week in the XFL. So really it's going to be about these defenses. I mean, are they going to be able to scheme based on the little bit of film that they now have on these two quarterbacks from week number 1? And so I think that's going to be the key. Both offenses are going to play very well. So it's going to be which defense can scheme the best, maybe who can get that turnover. I think it's going to be a really great game. I think this is going to be really close. We might actually see our first overtime in the XFL. I think that game is this close. So I'm really excited to see this one. I'm excited to see Cardale Jones and Matt McGloin kind of go after it, but more specifically, I'm anxious to see how these defenses are going to match up based on what they saw last week from these teams. As far as a score, I don't know. It's going to be really close. It's going to come down to the wire. Probably at the end of the day, I think I'm probably going to have to just go with that home field advantage at Audi Field, and I think the Defenders are probably going to come out away with a close victory, 26-23. I will say that part of the reason for that prediction is I think the DC Defenders played a much tougher opponent last week than the Guardians. I am a lot higher on the Dragons than most people right now. I actually think that secondary is very good. One of the reasons the DC Defenders was able to beat them last week is because Cardale Jones was able to extend plays. That secondary actually is pretty good the first 3 to 5 seconds in coverage. So I actually think the Dragons are a pretty good team, and it's because of how Cardale Jones can extend those plays. We'll see if he's going to be able to do it against the Guardians defense, but the Vipers really are a struggling team right now. Guardians, I think, probably had an easier win than the Defenders, and so for me, I think the Defenders are going to squeak this one out just because of their strength of schedule. Next up on Saturday, we have the Tampa Bay Vipers at the Seattle Dragons. This is going to be on Saturday at 5 p.m. on Fox. And I actually think this is likely to be a closer game than you might think, based on especially what I just said. Again, I like the Dragons. I think they're a solid team. And I do think that the Vipers really struggled last week. They didn't look good at all. However, one thing that you notice about football, if you watch a lot of football, if a team struggles a lot in 1 week, they are going to give you their best effort the next week out. So I think the Vipers are definitely going to have something to prove this weekend because they just looked so bad in week 1. So I think that Mark Trestman's going to try to get these guys ready to go, and they're going to travel up to Seattle ready to play. With that said, I do think that the Dragons are a pretty solid team. They're also going to want to respond well. They played a little better to me than the Vipers did last week, but they still couldn't get the job done, and they did lose that game on the road to the Defenders, and they're certainly going to want to open up at home with a win. So I think both of these teams are going to be really charged to get a victory. And again, for both of these teams, 0-1. It's not a super long season, 10 weeks. I know it's early, but you don't want to fall back 0-2 immediately. So I think these guys are going to give it everything they have this week. And so I think it's going to be a closer game than you might think. But given the circumstance, given how these teams played last week, and given the adjustments they're going to need to make, it's a tall order for the Vipers to play as badly as they did. I know they're going to have a lot of emotion. They're going to play with a lot of passion, but it's going to be a tough ask for them to travel all the way to the West Coast in Seattle and try to come away with a win, especially when they have all the struggles that they had last week. I do think we're going to see a little bit more of Quentin Flowers this week. I think he's going to give them a better chance, but I think at the end of the day, it's just going to be a little bit too much. I think the Dragons are going to come out solid. They're going to play well, and I think they're going to come away with the victory in this one, 27-17. And I think mainly it's going to be that Seattle secondary that makes the difference. Aaron Murray just isn't as mobile as Cardale Jones, and so I think that Cardale Jones kind of gave us a false feeling of how good that secondary is just because he was able to extend those plays. I don't see Aaron Murray doing that with a lot of success. I think we're going to start to see the skill in that secondary, and I think that at the end of the day that's going to play the difference. So 27-17 going to the Seattle Dragons. Okay, so on to our Sunday games now, and the first game on Sunday is between the Dallas Renegades and the LA Wildcats at 3 p.m. on ABC. Now, I think this game is going to be really difficult to predict, mainly because we're not sure if Wildcats quarterback Josh Johnson is going to suit up. Or at least I didn't know that as of the recording of this video. I'm going to make my predictions based on the assumption that he will play, and I'll have my reasons for that as coming up here. But these are two teams, just like the last game, both teams 0-1. They started out last week, kind of falling behind early. That means both of them are going to come out with a lot of passion and have something to prove. I think that especially goes for the Dallas Renegades. They were picked before a game was played to win the whole thing. They look to have the most solid roster. They got Bob Stoops as their coach, but they came out and just did not play as well as people thought they would against the Battlehawks. So I think that they're going to make a lot of adjustments this week. Obviously, they've got quarterback Landry Jones going to be making his debut this week. They held him back to keep him healthy as he was kind of finishing up healing from an injury. It looks like he's going to be playing this week, so I think they're going to come out really all cylinders firing. They're going to do everything they can to not fall back 0-2. I think the same is going to be the case with the LA Wildcats. And if Josh Johnson plays, I think that makes this thing a lot closer. I think it makes this game a lot better than we think it will. I think he's going to bring some stability to that offense. I hope he does anyway. And I think we'll see a very different Wildcat team if Josh Johnson plays. If he doesn't play, I think the prediction's easy. I think the Renegades win going away. But if he plays, I think that's going to be a different game. I think it's going to be a lot closer, and it's going to be probably down to the basics that you would typically see in football. Which team has the most turnovers? Which team's going to have that big key moment that sways it one way or the other? I think at the end of the day, though, it's going to be the Renegades. They're going to come away with the win. They're going to have that, I think that big roster of theirs is going to show themselves for what we thought they were going to be before last week's games, and they're going to come away with this win 32-25. Now, I don't think this game is that close. If Josh Johnson does not play for the Wildcats, it's not going to be that close if he doesn't play. But if he does, I think it's going to be a lot closer. But yeah, 32-25 going to the Renegades. And finally, our last game of the weekend on Sunday at 6 p.m. on FS1. It's the St. Louis Battlehawks at the Houston Roughnecks. Now, both of these teams played very well last week. I think the Battlehawks was a little flat at times, but really defensively they played super well. And so they're going to need every bit of that defense this week against a Houston Roughnecks team that just scored and did really well last week in their opener. So to me, this one seems like this game may be the hardest to predict outside of the fact we don't know if Josh Johnson's going to play for the LA Wildcats in the previous game. These rosters are just really unique. The question is, can the Battlehawks have the same outing defensively that they had last week? I'm not sure. I just think it's going to take a lot to beat this Roughnecks team. They look like the best team in the XFL after week one. Obviously, Philip Walker is really hard to plan for. He's very quick on his feet. He's got a cannon arm. Looks like he makes all of the right reads. So we're just going to have to see. We don't know so much about Jordan Ta'amu just yet. He played well. He had a lot of poise. I thought he was not quite as good as he needed to be last week in terms of just flat-out gameplay, but it was his calm and his poise that really, to me, held the team together, especially late when they just needed that kind of atmosphere and calmness. He provided that along with head coach Jonathan Hayes. We're just going to have to see. I don't know if they can stop that June Jones offense, that run and shoot. They really got that thing put together very quickly. So I'm not really sure what to do with this game. It's all going to be whether or not that Battlehawk defense can really hold up to the Houston Roughnecks. I'm just going to go with the home team here. I don't think they're going to have what it takes to hold Walker back and that really potent offense that June Jones has created. I think I'm going to go with a final score of 36-28. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm not sure. I just, this is probably the one I feel like I'll be the most wrong on, but I don't really know which way I'm going to go. I don't know which way I'm going to be wrong. It could be the Roughnecks win by a larger margin. It could be the Battlehawks play better than expected offensively. I don't know, but we're just going to go with that score and just see what happens. But, hey, guys, that's it for this video. You let me know what you think in the comment sections down below. Who do you think is going to win this week's games? Give me your predicted scores, and we'll come back with the Week 2 review here coming up early next week, and we'll just see how right or how wrong I was on these games. But hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time for some more XFL talk. Have a good one.